Good. I think we're waiting on.
I'm good.
Good. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri, and with me is Clearwater Police Chief Dan Slaughter. I'll just give you a brief overview from a county perspective, and then Chief Slaughter will address what's going on here in Clearwater. So, to effect the directive that all of the public beaches in Pinellas County be closed, as well as the parking lots that have beach access, we began that yesterday, and certainly appreciate the diligence and the cooperation of all of the cities throughout Pinellas County and Pinellas County government to put this in place in very short order. There are, as right now, there are 82 parking lots that are beach access parking lots from Dunedin all the way south to Paso Grill that have been closed. Now, some of those parking lots have been fully closed, and some of them have been partially closed because they are also shared use with businesses. And the last thing we want to do is anything that adversely affects those businesses, especially now as they're only doing takeout, etc., or other businesses that are along the beaches. So if they are a mixed-use parking lot, you will see that they are partially shut down. But we've been able to effect the closures where appropriate, and also the beach access points, again, all the way from Dunedin Causeway. One of the things that we learned first thing this morning is the state late last night, directed that Honeymoon Island State Park be closed for 14 days. So everything going out to Dunedin Causeway, including Honeymoon Island, as far as any vehicle parking, it's all closed. The causeway's open. I was out there earlier. People are walking the causeway, and of course, as we've talked about, there's a lot of wet sand out there, and they can walk on the causeway, enjoy their walks, enjoy their exercise, enjoy their bike rides. They just can't park out there, and they can't get into Honeymoon Island. All the way down in St. Pete Beach, I'd say it's about the same thing. There are some people out there, and I just ask everybody to remember, we are getting some calls. I just ask everybody to remember, especially as you look at the area from Bel Air Beach all the way south, it's a lot of mixed use. And you have a lot of hotels, you have a lot of apartments, a lot of condos. I just saw somebody call a little while ago complaining because somebody had cabanas out. Well, the cabanas can be out, especially at those hotels and those private locations. It's also people out there that are on the beach, and you don't see it here behind us because this is all public beach certainly behind us, but you'll see people that are out there in those private areas. Also is that in that wet sand area that we don't control and this isn't applicable to, people are out there doing their exercise walks, and that's fine. Overall, we have great compliance. Things are going very well. I put the helicopter up about 45 minutes ago, and the helicopter went from St. Pete Beach all the way up to North Clearwater Beach. And the description I got back from the pilots was that there are people out there, but it's light, and the greatest number of people at any one place was 5. So very thankful for, again, everybody's cooperation, what we're seeing, and we'll continue to monitor it here today, tomorrow, and throughout the weekend. I'll turn it over to Chief Slaughter, and then we'll take any questions that you have.
I'll be very quick, just so I'm not redundant. Clearwater obviously participating in this closure of the beach in the Clearwater segment. We have a very large beach that is directly behind us, and is this time of year is generally in high use. So we have officers that are patrolling that sand on mules and encountering people if they need to, discussing with them, explaining the rules to them. As the sheriff said, this is a very complicated thing to enforce because we have 3 distinct areas in Clearwater. This public bathing beach behind me, we have a North Beach residential community north of this beach, and then down south at Sand Key. The lines are very complicated, so I just ask everyone to bear with us as we try to negotiate that. I think the message here is that some of these decisions have been debated, but they've decided, and now we're in a point that we just got to all comply. And compliance isn't about what's going to happen to me, am I going to get arrested? It's really about what's going to happen to all of us if we just don't mind our leaders. If our leaders give us direction, there's a lot of things, and there's a lot of changing resolutions that are coming out at a rapid pace. So we all just need to be in a mindset of compliance as we get through this virus. We're very empathetic. The sheriff and I both have talked frequently on how this is impacting our community, our workers, our employees. Not with our individual agencies, but in our communities. We have a lot of people that are negatively impacted by this virus, and we just want to make sure they understand our heart and soul goes out to them. Clearwater is committed to seeing this through, but we want to say, thank you to the community just for complying with the rules. We haven't had any significant issues. There are plenty of places to get out and recreate still. Memorial Causeway has a wonderful walking trail, goes right over the bridge. It's a great opportunity to go out there and relieve some stress if you'd like to. There's certainly good sidewalks, wide sidewalks along Clearwater Beach that are not on the sand that you could take full advantage of. There are retail establishments that are still open, so just please find those things that you can take advantage of, and and we appreciate your compliance. We're more than happy to turn it over to any questions.
Anybody got any questions you want to ask?
Well, I was going to ask, you made it pretty, obviously the last thing you guys want to do is kind of give any kind of citations out or anything like that. If that had to happen, would it happen, or are you pretty confident people are not going to go and try to go on the beach anyway?
So here's how I'll describe it to you, is that we expect people to make a reasonable, good faith effort, do the right thing, and comply. We're not looking to cite anybody, we're not looking to arrest anybody, and I'll describe it this way as far as I'm concerned, and we have the majority of the beaches I've talked to. There's only 3 police departments in all of these Pinellas County beaches, and that is here in Clearwater, Indian Shores, and Treasure Island. We have the rest of them. And people are going to about have to beg their way into jail, but if they beg and they do something that's really, really silly and they're very flagrant about it and they don't listen to many asks, then we'll do what we got to do. But that's going to be an absolute few and far between, and I hope a totally non-existent situation. And if people are reasonable about it, again, it's very difficult, and some would say impossible, and I think it is in some aspects, to figure out if somebody is lawfully where they can be or where they shouldn't be. One of the things and this is one of my concerns going into this, and I expressed this at the County Commission meeting the other day, in order for the law to be fair, equitable, and the right thing to be done, it needs to be unequivocally clear. The people who are supposed to abide by the law should know exactly what it is, and the people who are supposed to enforce the law should know exactly what it is, so that it's clear and people have that understanding. And this is about as far from that principle as you can get. And so we're not expecting people to be exacting and be perfect in this, and we can't be. So with that, we're just all going to work together. We're going to make the asks. And there are places where it's perfectly fine for people to be out there, 1s and 2s, getting their exercise walks in the wet sand, people that have private locations and hotels to be out there. And as long as it's done in a reasonable manner, there'll be no issues. And so far, that's what we're seeing, so we want. So this is not going to be about any real effort at enforcement from the perspective of citing or arresting or anything like that. And I'll say it again, is that I hope nobody does it. You about got to have to beg your way. So just do the right thing, we won't have any problems.
Thank you. In terms of manpower, are you guys having to staff more to patrol, or is it kind of business as usual?
I'll let Chief Slaughter handle from Clearwater.
Yeah, from Clearwater perspective, we were ramped up with personnel already in anticipation of a busy spring break next week. Our spring break deployment ran through the 29th of March, so with school closures, we actually have school resource officers we're able to repurpose. So we have plenty of manpower, probably more than we need with the barrenness of what you're seeing behind you. So we're not in a situation where we have any concerns about manpower.
No, and we really haven't either. We've got plenty of personnel. One of the things I'll just mention, it's not really part of this, but I'll mention it because we've talked about it earlier in the week and it's come up as far as the jail population is concerned. And I communicated this morning with the Chief Judge and the State Attorney, and really want to thank the Chief Judge and all the judges in the State Attorney's office over the last couple of days, because we've been able to significantly reduce the jail population. Earlier in the week, we had 220 people on the floor. That's down to 60 today. We released about 200 yesterday just by being able to get the cases normally through the system and process. So we're making great progress, and also to Chief Slaughter and the other police chiefs throughout Pinellas County, because the officers and the deputies are making good decisions, as we ask them to do, about using alternatives such as notices to appear and using discretion to make an arrest. So the normal amount of arrests that we see in the jail is probably about a quarter to a third of what it ordinarily is. And so all of that's working very well. But as far as additional staffing, we're not staffing any of the beaches and the beach deployments any more than we ordinarily do, because I don't see a need for it, because we're getting compliant. So there's no reason to do it.
In terms of your overall calls for service, have they stayed about the same over this period of time? Any difference in the types of calls you're seeing?
From a volume perspective, I'd say they're probably a little bit less. I think we're starting to see some more activity that could be consistent with people being home more often, more regular. Domestics are a little bit of a situation, a little concern that we're starting to see lit up. So we'll be mindful of that moving forward. I think to kind of really look at that data, can't really look at that day to day. It needs to be more of a trending data. So we're really kind of a week out from being able to see what the trend is there.
Are you prepared if the county decides to put a curfew?
Well, I'm not going to talk about what ifs and hypotheticals. There's no indication that that's going to happen. I don't see a need for it, so I don't think that we even need to go there. As you can see, that people are really engaging in the appropriate social distancing. You can see since the order came out yesterday about the restaurants and the compliance with that. You see a lot of takeout going on. You see people that are spread out, and nobody is in the restaurants where they shouldn't be. We're not seeing that any place. So I think as long as everybody keeps doing what's being asked of them, it will avoid additional mitigation measures that may be necessary. So I think that it's on the right track. I think that the governor's made good decisions and the right decisions, and it is moving in the right direction.
I know that the Clearwater Beach specifically has been under some scrutiny nationally just for the visuals that were portrayed the other day. Do you have any response to that, or you guys have been working on this for some time? You can't just throw this together.
I would say you always have to deal with that kind of scrutiny in this business, and one day we're getting criticized on national news syndicates for being open, and the next day we're editorial in a newspaper for closing. So you really make these decisions in these kind of emergencies with your best judgment. Use your best judgment. I'm different than a constitutional officer, where my perspective is my council creates policy and I implement it. And my role is to provide advice and information. But once they hit the gavel and say this is what we're going to do, it's my job to do it.
So I'll say it a little bit more strongly is that I'd say that the national media, look, there was a problem here Monday. That problem was Monday. That problem wasn't Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And as I said, and I believe that these decisions were made because of what happened previously, not what was happening then or what was happening going forward. And I think it was irresponsible for the national media, CNN and these other outlets, as I saw them as recently as Thursday morning, that they were playing the same clip over and over again that was wholly inaccurate. That's not what you all should be doing. That's not what the media's role is, and to advocate and to put forth, really at that point, which was erroneous information, making people think that that was what was happening at that moment. If that's what was happening at that moment, I'd be the first one with my hand up saying we got to do something about this, and we have to have strict compliance and strict enforcement. We need to take swift action. But that's not the case. So that's really unfair. Remember when all that was occurring, is that Governor DeSantis had not yet entered his order about beach mitigation. All the other mitigation measures were either hadn't started or were just at the very early stages. And I don't think it's a good way to do things, where you put mitigation measures in place, you don't let them even see if they work, and then you increase it exponentially. And so I think that was caused in part by some of those national media outlets continuing to play the same thing over and over and leading people to believe. And I don't fault the people for being concerned and sending their nasty emails and all their concern, because they thought that was happening at the moment, and it wasn't. So that added to this, and I'd say it exacerbated the situation and probably influenced some decisions to be made that maybe didn't need to get made. But that's the way it is. We live with it, and we're going to move forward, and we're all going to get through this and come out of it well at the end, and just continue to ask for everybody's cooperation.
Gualtieri, one last question. Can you speak at all to which inmates have been released? I know in Hillsborough County, any non-violent low-level criminals were released. What about Pinellas?
Well, we, again, as I just said, is that we've been working very closely with the chief judge, the state attorney, and the judges, the courts, and they've done a great job in the ordinary course of business. We didn't need any wide sweeping orders. We had a maxed out jail population with, as I said, 220 on the floor earlier in the week. Today we've got about 60. We released a couple hundred yesterday, but it's being done through the normal process and not with sweeps. And I think that's the way it should be done. I'm very pleased with where we are with the jail population today and the efforts that have been made here. So those, and I've gotten emails and, oh my God, you should just let everybody out of the jail. Well, no, because I think we got the right people in the jail. We do a lot here with pretrial release. We've got about 1,000 people on any given day in Pinellas County that are out on what's called release on recognizance. That means no bond. We've got about 400 people that are out on supervised bond, which means electronic monitoring. We have the APAD program, which is adult pre-arrest diversion, where people don't even get into the system. You start adding up all those numbers, and you got a whole lot of people, like 1,600 people, that are not even in the jail to begin with. So we got the right people in the jail, and they can do what they want, but I saw they were releasing people who were burglars on possession of cocaine charges and other things, and I don't think that's the right thing to do. We need to manage the jail population. We are effectively managing it. We'll continue to do it that way. Anybody got anything else? No? All right, appreciate your time. Thank you. Thanks.